Hi guys, it's Andrew Zeleno with one of the best music production and audio mixing courses. If you don't want to be misled for the next 10 years, you want top-notch topics and all these very unique topics, and we're gonna bust all the myths of this snake oil audio engineering field, this course is for you. Free videos on this YouTube channel is just to get you interested. Real education is to host all full-blown 80 lessons. How to buy full lessons, read the description. My credits, 240 all 5 stars reviews and 150 all 5 stars reviews verified by Google, you can find in the description. And of course my contacts where you can ask any questions. I recently activated a membership on my YouTube channel, one membership only video on my YouTube channel each month, and you will vote what video you want to watch. All income from membership goes to 2 animal shelters on the front line in Kherson city of Ukraine. They are bombarded every day. Some animals were even injured and died because of artillery strikes. When you become a member, you support those animal shelters. When you buy full lessons, I also take a part of it and I send to them. I know those animal shelters personally. How to donate to them if you want by yourself, I'm gonna put the information in the description as well. And help animals by yourself. Watch around who needs some help. Donate, but help with your own hands. And be a peaceful warrior. Stop those crooks who make money on this war. Vote for the peace. Don't allow them to continue this war. They all make money from all countries involved. In fact, a lot of people say nonsense about why you need masterbus compressor. In fact, masterbus compressor is needed just for only one simple purpose, is to glue everything together. But what a lot of people don't understand, especially good if a song has a vocal. A lot of people don't understand, if your song has a vocal, masterbus compressor almost like mandatory. If you don't have a vocal, you don't necessarily need a masterbus compressor. My point, a vocal is the most known sound in your life. You learn how to listen to the voice from the very childhood because your survival depends on it. You need to listen to your parents, then teachers, then cops, and your boss at your job, and everything like this. So you need to really recognize tone of a voice. And vocal also much more complicated than any other instrument because it's not just transient and some vibration of a string. Vocal has consonants, k, t, p, t, which is very different from vowels, o, a, u, e, and sibilances, ch, ts, ts, ch. So many different sounds come together in one performance. As you learn your vocal the whole your life, when vocal doesn't sit in the mix, it's very obvious for you. If trumpet doesn't sit in the mix or synthesizer, you're kind of okay with this because you not necessarily know how the synthesizer even should sound. Synthesizers, it's a random tone which can be so adjusted and modified in any way, and you're okay with this. But voice is something different. When vocal doesn't sit in the mix, it's exactly the problem. And masterbus compressor, one of the best tools actually to put your vocal in the mix. It's not necessarily the only tool you need, and it's not only one thing what really defines how vocal sits in the mix, but it's one of those. First of all, I want to prove that gluing effect actually helps vocal sit in the mix. I recorded this funny song just for tests of my microphones and preamps, and I made a rock version of it, then I created an orchestral hip-hop style remix of it, and then EDM version, which I showed in some of my previous videos on this channel. Ignore my videos before May 2025. The whole point is in videos from May 2025.
This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier. This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier.
Now I will turn off masterbus compressor, which I use over here, SSL masterbus compressor, and you will see how vocal doesn't sit in the mix.
This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier. This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier.
Preamplifier, like completely away from music, you know what I mean? Also some high frequencies, some special parts. It's not even about like what exactly going on there. You just feel like something in this vocal kind of fine, but it's just somehow apart from music. Let's do now opposite. Vocal is not sitting in the mix first, and then vocal sitting in the mix. This is vocal doesn't sit in the mix because of there is no master bus compressor.
This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier. This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier.
You know, somehow vocal like those like just like really apart from music, you know. This is with master bus compressor, vocal inside of music.
This is the test, this is the test, this is the test of preamplifier.
This flute like in the end is just genius. I'm a composer, you know what I mean? So good. Master bus compressor literally put my vocal in the mix, you know. This is great. Vocal putting in the mix, mixing tool. Now I'm gonna show you the same thing without the vocal. Let's say this is just a bit. Let's say it's instrumental. It doesn't matter if you apply master bus compressor or not. Check it out. Try to guess which is which, where it was with master bus compressor and where it was without master bus compressor. Put your answers in the comment section. So my point is, let's memorize it. If your music doesn't have any vocal, you not necessarily need master bus compressor. Sometimes it still helps, sometimes you really doesn't need it, because compressor shrink your dynamic range and everything can be too flat for your, let's say, classic music or something. If you produce classic music with orchestras, with virtual instruments, let's say, based on orchestral instruments, actually maybe you don't need master bus compressor. But when it comes to really a traditional song with a vocal, then it's the time to consider a master bus compressor. So the whole internet saying, gluing together. But in my opinion, it's not really gluing everything together. It's about the vocal the song has when vocal really need to be put in the mix. Another potential reason why you apply master bus compressor, even if your mix doesn't have any vocals, is some compressors make your sound fatter and bigger or tasty. As we already know so many times, even digital compressor enhance specific harmonics. It's really funny, but a lot of people think if compressor is digital, you absolutely don't saturate your sound. It's nonsense. You always saturate your sound with even digital compressor. Harmonics, quiet signals go up. Harmonics go up with compressors. So some compressors, especially analog emulations or analog compressors, you know, they amazing saturation tool. They are the best enhancers. Recently, some enhancer plugin manufacturer contacted me and saying, do you want to promote our plugin? And I said, even though it potentially can make me some money, but I'm not that kind of person, you know. And I said to them honestly, I don't like enhancers. All my coloration comes from my recording tools, microphones, and everything from compressors. If I want to saturate my tone in some way, I would use special compressor. So sorry, I'm not gonna promote your enhancer. This is how I reply to them. So if your compressor on the master bus just somehow modifies the frequency response and especially coloration, then you potentially may be a fan of this master bus compressor for that reason. But let's be honest, it's a side effect, right? Not every compressor sounds very pleasant. A lot of compressors which you can throw on the master bus can make your whole song fluctuating. Louder parts go quieter. Quieter parts go louder. It will be plus saturation wise it can be noisier, dirtier, you know. So you not always need master bus compressor. So my point is to glue everything together, especially when vocal doesn't sit in the mix. And it doesn't even matter if it sits in the mix or not. With master bus compressor, it usually sits in the mix better. Only when you set up master bus compressor properly. Today I'm gonna explain all settings and how to really set up your master bus compressors. As I already mentioned, cons of master bus compressor that potentially can make your sound worse. Let's check disadvantages of master bus compressor. Angus Young from AC/DC, do you agree with me? Yeah, look. He points his finger on me. Angus agree with us. Older than 70 years old, their vocal is 78, I believe. They have another tour. I visited their concert in 2025. In 2026, they will be still in North America. The US and Canada residents, don't forget to visit their concert. They are just amazing. I mean, if you want definition of a legend word, it's AC/DC. Salute to them by visiting their concerts in 2026. And be fast, because tickets are bought basically like 2 days after they are posted. Crazy, check it out. First con of masterbus compressor, we can lose a bit of clarity and definition details punch. When you apply a compressor for the whole song, your instruments have transients and sustain. So you have some transients. Let's say this is kick drum. Above it you have, let's say, bass guitar, which has more sustain, maybe not so punchy in the beginning. And then maybe in between you have some snare drum with a punch and some sustain and punch and sustain. When you apply a compressor, as you understand, all compressors work with the threshold. How they work, I explained from lesson from 9 to 15. No matter what kind of settings of attack and release ratio and amount of compression you apply, even a little bit, it influences some parts of it. You potentially may lose maybe some transients in the beginning, like this, or you potentially may saturate this particular part under compression even with a longer attack, and all these differences between tones of instruments will be a bit more polished, more washed out. You potentially may have a long release which influences the next punch, and this punch will be a bit more compressed, and more release, long release, and this punch of the next part will be compressed. So some drums can be a little bit less clicky. Or if release is short enough, or automatic release does it like this, potentially you compress mostly these louder parts of those parts of a song. I call them parts. By part I mean in the little piece of your song, it's a combination, let's say, of a kick sample, then bass note, then vocal note, then maybe some piano chord or electric guitar chord or whatever. So it's a part of your song. So inside of this part, you usually compress louder parts more and quieter parts less. As any masterbus compressor and any compressor has volume normalization after compression, you raise up those quieter parts a bit more. So in this first piece, this part will be raised up a bit more. And this little piece will be literally louder. It will be more saturated. Those noisier parts which were inaudible before becomes more noisy, becomes a bit more kind of saturated because of those parts literally were quieter, now they're louder. And even compressor saturates it more. And this is how your song potentially can lose a bit of clarity. It can lose a bit of definition, those like click, 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 click of each note, which you kind of hear before compression. And after compression, everything just like smoother, you know. The punch, this is what we call punch. Those beginnings like... It's like when you hit with your hand, you throw your hand, and when it touches the surface, it creates this like click, like punchy gunshot sort of sound, you know. So this thing can be compressed, smoothed out, you know. So this is how you can lose a punch because of masterbus compressor, especially if you apply it incorrectly. Also, it can create overcompression. A lot of people set up masterbus compressors so weirdly. Let's be honest, I don't want to criticize anybody, but when I was learning audio engineering, I didn't know that this field is so snake oil and so stupid, to be honest. I read some books and people suggested so strange masterbus compressor settings, I almost like relearned how to use it properly by myself. I started in the early 2000s, and maybe only in 2012 I finally realized what to do, you know, because those inner suggestions and all those books, articles and everything were so stupid and so crazy. So that's why it can create overcompression. When you apply a bit too much compression or a bit too short release or a bit too high ratio and everything, it contributes to overcompression. Everything becomes so squashed, so kind of compressed that eventually the whole song changes its sound completely. Pumping effect. Imagine you apply very aggressive settings on your masterbus compressors, which a lot of people do. You compress this louder part, everything above the threshold, kind of like much more than everything below the threshold. In the next part of a song as well. In the next part of a song as well. And in the next part of a song as well. Let's say you have pretty short release. A lot of books suggest 100 milliseconds release, which is too short, actually, to masterbus compressors. You normalize volume after compression to bring the volume of your song back to normal volume. And eventually, if you imagine the curve of volume, it will be looking like this. Quieter part, and suddenly the tail of your first part becomes too loud. Then again, drop, and then again loud. Then drop, and again loud in the tail of the third part. Then drop, and again loud in the tail of the fourth part. So your song sounds like all the time, just like, like somebody put a pump. You take this thing, you put it to your tire of your bicycle, and you like pressure, relaxation, pressure, relaxation, and your song sounds like all the time. The problem is, in electronic music, it's a common effect. Don't mix up those things. When you apply sidechaining and it's rhythmically correct, and your sound of house music sounds like kick, 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 and bass in between goes like bass, 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 it's one thing. But when it's a rock song or pop song or jazz music, and everything just like and this masterbus compressor doesn't guarantee it will be rhythmically correct, because your drums in jazz music doesn't sound like kick, 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 kick. It can be completely complicated drum rhythm, and everything, all those fluctuations will go like up and down, just absolutely not according to your tempo, not according to your rhythm. It will be just random jumps, like technically incorrect sound. As a listener, you're gonna say, oh, something wrong in this music. Some technical issue over there, Another issue with masterbus compressor, it's ear fatigue. I was traveling through Rocky Mountains. Rocky Mountains is the place where I prefer to be. It's my home in Canada, This is North America Rocky Mountains, the tallest mountains in North America. This is what I was traveling to. To take a trip from, let's say, Calgary to Vancouver Island, it takes literally like 13 hours. So I throw myself in my car. I put very compressed sound, Nickelback band. Early albums of Nickelback I really appreciate. Mixed by Metallica mixer, Randy Staub, but he applies crazy amount of masterbus compression, from 6 to 8 dB at the time. And everything like very compressed. When I play it, it sounds so powerful, so aggressive. You can check the song of Nickelback called Follow Me Home. You probably know Nickelback as almost like meme, how everybody hates it for pop sort of songs. But check Follow Me Home with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. It's amazing and it's powerful. You play it and it sounds so cool. But to be honest, after 2-3 songs, during this very long trip, I was tired. It's what we mean ear fatigue. And ear fatigue happens commonly because of masterbus compression. When your song under, let's say, 6-8 decibels of compression, your music literally looks like a sausage, like this. Plus all these maximizers, limiters is the next topic after masterbus compressor. We're gonna go to mastering with masterbus compressors, limiters, and their models. We're gonna compare all these things, how to push volumes, if you really need to push volumes, how to do it properly, how to push it too much but without artifacts and clarity. It's amazing. They all lie to you actually in your face. They all say, oh, our maximizer is so clear with volume. Pretty no maximizer sounds clear with volume push. Are you crazy? There is literally 1-2 clear maximizers among like hundreds of plugins in the world. I'm gonna reveal all these in those masterbus topics. So Nickelback looked like this, as a sausage. Sounds powerful for the first minute, but a bit exhausting after maybe 2-3 songs, because there is no up and downs in your music, just very aggressive and decent but sausage-like music, you know what I mean? Just pushing your eardrums all the time with a precise, aggressive amount of SPL, sound pressure level. Then I switched to AC/DC album, one of those early eras, My favorite 2 AC/DC albums of early era are definitely Let There Be Rock and Highway to Hell. Those 2 albums are the best in early stage of AC/DC. They not necessarily sound much more compressed in Back in Black era or Ball Breaker, one of my favorite albums. Ball Breaker is for some reason very underappreciated album. It's literally one of my favorites. In AC/DC, it's not that compressed on the masterbus in general, So they have loud parts and quiet parts, loud parts and quiet parts. And I'm not even saying between like verse and chorus or something. I mean, even in between, like all the time, your eardrum enjoys it. It's a bit like more punch, a bit relaxation, a bit more punch, a bit relaxation. I was able to literally drive for hours listening AC/DC albums without ear fatigue. With Nickelback, it was much more powerful. Nickelback, by the way, from the area where I live. So it's my home country band, you know what I mean? They sound amazing, but I couldn't handle more than 2-3 songs. And I handled AC/DC perfectly. So that's why masterbus compressor can contribute to ear fatigue. I'm gonna put this picture like sausage versus relaxation. Relaxation on the top, so it's AC/DC. This is Nickelback. So when it comes to radio-ready mixes, it's like BAM! And for 2 minutes you're like, oh my god, it's amazing. But when it comes to listening like 45 minutes album, you know what I mean? Now let's talk about how to really implement masterbus compressor. So as we already understood, the best way is to apply masterbus compressor not for some strange reasons, but just for one reason, for glue everything together. What's the problem with masterbus compressors in general? If you have, let's say, kick drum, then let's say you have snare drums in between, kick snare, then you have, let's say, a vocal note, just like, oh, Canada, you go like this, right? So then you have maybe some piano or guitar, maybe chord, lesson for 2 pieces, another chord, you know. The problem with compressors, if you apply them somehow aggressively with noticeable compression, you literally make quieter parts louder and louder parts quieter. So basically, within the kick part, this is first part from here to here. Inside of it, remember we learned individual compressors from lesson 16 to lesson 25. When you have some higher ratio, shorter release, faster attack, and more straightforward compressors like feed-forward compressors instead of feedback compressors and everything. Eventually, what happens, even inside of this part, the beginning becomes quieter, and kick is really dominant amplitude-wise. So you're definitely gonna squash this part. And this, like the end of this part, you're not gonna compress too much due to shorter release, or maybe hard knee compressor, or whatever reason it is. Snare part, the same, but even those louder part in the snare part, you're gonna compress less. And tail, you're not gonna compress too much, or almost at all. Then another kick part, too much in the beginning, not too much in the tail, and so on, right? So the problem is, after volume normalization, you spoil your song by a couple of points. First of all, overall part of a kick becomes much more compressed due to loud kick drum triggers more compression over there. So overall, this encircled green part becomes quieter than this blue part encircled. So this one quieter, this one louder. So your song already sounds weird. It can be like some parts quieter in general, some parts louder in general. Another issue, this little bit of pumping effect when perceived volume level goes like this and then suddenly jumps out in the tail, and goes like this and jumps out in the tail. You don't want all these dynamics adjustments for your song. Don't forget, musicians, if it's not a random stuff, when people just sing something, some beat on the back and they don't care about anything. If it was musicians and they played really what they should play, and drummer was like kick, snare, controlling volume of kick and snares, you know. Bass guitarist was playing just like do. An anecdote about bass guitarist, vocalist performing on stage and thinking, oh my god, I look so amazing, all these girls are mine. Guitarist playing like, oh my god, I'm playing so fast, I'm so sexy, all these girls are mine. And bass guitarist playing and thinking, G, E, G, E, G, E. So basically, bass guitarist doesn't want his bass guitar to sound just like because of these fluctuations. Drummer also doesn't want to hear kick less and snare more just because of masterbus compressor. When vocalist performs above all this, vocalists try to hold some dynamics and go in just like Только пули свистят по степи. I don't want my vocal going something like just like, and some parts are just quieter because of it's a kick part, you know, and other parts like again louder. If I'm a professional vocalist, I perform it professionally, you know, I'm thinking about dynamics and how exactly it should be done. Drummer, as a professional, does the same thing, and instrumentalists do the same thing. That's why masterbus compressor should not really fight with dynamics of all those instruments. We use masterbus compressor for completely different reasons. And the reason is to glue everything together, and as already explained in the beginning of this lesson, it's about sitting vocal in a mix. So that's why I say this. For gluing, it's more than enough to apply smooth compression from 1 to 4 decibels of compression. I would say 2 dB would be more than enough. 4 dB already pretty risky, but with very, very right attack and release and ratio, even 4 dB may be working. But in general, it's just 1-2 dB of compression, the best. Why? Because even if you set up somehow low threshold and high ratio and everything, if your gain reduction meter shows just 1-2 dB of compression, let's be honest, all these crazy fluctuations on the kick will be less dropped down, and snare part will not be really brought up, and all these differences between compressed parts and less compressed parts and more compressed parts and less compressed parts will be much more minimized with very low number on the gain reduction meter of your compressor. Now I'm gonna blow your minds, at least some of you. If we apply noticeable master bus compression, we will fight with our individual settings against master bus compression. Imagine this, let's say on equalizer for kick drum, I boost, let's say, some lows. Let's say I want fatter kick or something, right? Possible. Now master bus compressor will increase amount of compression for the kick parts because kick becomes louder and fatter. It increases from 2 dB of compression to, let's say, 5 dB of compression. You're gonna have much more, let's say, on the master bus compression every time when you hear kick part, but not when you hear snare part or in between. Let's say you have kick, head, snare, head, kick, head, snare, head. Every time when you hear kick becomes fatter, so it's much more above the threshold. Compressor sees it as much higher volume, so it should compress it much more. It compresses it much more. And instead of 2 dB, you apply already 5 dB on every kick part, but not on the hi-hat part or snare parts in your song. So when you go like trading people, you know, as a vocalist, your 3, which goes with the kick, will be compressed much more. And when you say ting under hi-hat and p under snare and pull under next hi-hat will not be compressed by 5 dB but only 2 dB. So I'm gonna imitate it visually. So you're gonna have like kick part, hi-hat, snare part, hi-hat, and your vocal goes, let's say, trading people. Now you're gonna have 5 dB of compression for 3 because kick just becomes fatter, bigger, and it will be compressed much more. And under thing, it will be compressed just by 1 dB. Under snare, it will be compressed by 2 dB by the master bus compressor. And under another hi-hat, it will be compressed just by 1 dB. Eventually, this part will be much quieter and then more or less equal. So 3 of the vocal will be much quieter in the mix than ting, p, and pull. So you're gonna have like people because of kick compressed much more because you just increased EQ of the low end on your kick drum. So your master bus compressor completely changes the whole volume of your vocal. Crazy, right? That's why you should never create aggressive settings on your master bus compressor. This is the lesson number 26. Now we're gonna continue with the full lesson. Now we're gonna really learn stuff, you know. Simple example. I even challenged myself by not really raising up lows just on the kick. I'm gonna raise low end on the full drum loop, but it still would be the same issue. Check it out. Now I play this beat with just 2 dB of compression. So this is 0, this is 4. So classic SSL master bus compressor is the most known. Master bus compressor shows us 2 dB of compression in general. So the needle, as you can see, in between 0 and 2 all the time. Now I just literally put this equalizer on the whole drum loop. So I just boost low end on the kick drum. And look what needle does. It will show 5 dB all the time when kick sounds and much less when snare and hi-hat parts. So if you already mix your song and then you decided to apply this master bus compressor and you really wanted this kick that crazy fat, then you throw master bus compressor and now the whole kick parts become much quieter just because of you push all these levels for the threshold of this compressor because your kick was fatter than hi-hat parts and snare parts. As you know, I'm gonna tell you this in advance, a lot of people use master bus compressors in advance. They put this compressor just before starting mixing, applying some general settings, a little bit of compression, and then they go to individual instruments. It's like assembling the mix upside down, you know. You throw something what will be the last processor and then you go to individual instruments to make them better. It's still the same problem. So you throw this compressor, let's say with this very not too crazy settings, 2:1, oversampling, 100 milliseconds release or automatic, which a lot of books actually suggest, medium attack, not too short, not too long, 3 milliseconds attack, just only 2 dB of compression. Good. Then you start assembling your mix. Then, during mixing, you realized that your kick drum should be much fatter. For example, you throw this EQ on your kick, you raise up some lows on your kick, and eventually your masterbus compressor will be reacting by 5 dB on every kick part. But still only 2 dB when there is no kicks in your music. Crazy, right? So, no matter what kind of approach you apply here, masterbus compressor will fight with your settings. And it's natural settings on the masterbus compressor I use. Imagine what if I used, for example, 4:1 with, let's say, faster attack, let's say 1 millisecond, or let's say longer releases. We're gonna hold the whole kick part with this increased lows. Longer and much more squashing effect will be applied to those parts. So you potentially may have much more compression for the kick part than to the hi-hat and snare parts in your music, than even in my example. Crazy, right? So what to do? So first rule, of course, I already explained. Try to minimize amount of compression. Use just minimal amount of compression, just maybe from 1 to 4 decibels. At best, maybe 2 dB only. With all these extra modifications on individual instruments, you're not gonna create too crazy differences eventually, you know. So the best practice here is to use special settings on the masterbus compression. First settings I already explained. The minimal amount of compression. Don't forget to donate. I'm gonna put donation information about animal shelters who are in the front line in my former city, Kherson city in Ukraine, under constant bombardment. Artillery strike killed multiple animals over there. I watched some pictures. I was just shocked. I don't want to show you this because it will be psychological trauma for you. I don't want to make this trauma for you. It's crazy. The fault of this corrupted Ukrainian government, Russian government, of course, NATO, who want to make money on all these wars and everything. Don't be naive to think there is just like one evil who make all this, you know. All the scumbags actually make a lot of money on it. So how to donate to these animal shelters, I personally know these people, so you can find in the description of this video. And membership of my YouTube channel. I share some free videos over there. You can vote what you want to see, some behind the scenes. I can show you something interesting about recording studios and guitars and pedals over there. You can vote what kind of topics you want to hear about. It's just a couple of bucks, but all the money from membership go to those animal shelters. See you later, guys. Bye.